obnoxiously close to each other in order to look like normal person close on camera.
Now we're live.
That's a good thing you guys like.
I'm glad that that's the first thing I said.
They're for those of you who are already here, we're all talking about how close we need to sit.
Yeah,
to be on camera.
This is very close to her.
Oh no, we can hear ourselves. Hold
Oh
on.
God.
There we go. I guess I could just mute this. There we go. Okay. I don't know. Oh, yeah, there's 3 people watching. Hi, 3 people.
Cool.
One of those people better not be me. Hold on.
Might be you.
One of those people might have been me. Oh, no, it went up. There, we have people saying hi. Yay. Hello. This is so exciting. This is going to be fun.
Welcome, everyone. Happy Sunday.
Yeah.
We have our various beverages.
Yeah.
Christina and I both selected nano mugs for the occasion.
I would have, but I have water instead.
You could have put that in a mug.
You know what?
We were also, as we were waiting, taking the time to go through this amazing selection of seed packets that Maria has to add to her yard.
Yeah, I haven't posted any pictures of this yet, but I've gone from like 0 to 60 on being a farm girl lately. So there will be pictures of that coming on my Instagram. And I'm very excited about all of the things that I'm growing.
One of my favorite things that you said recently, I think it was at Dahlia Day, where was that some people have like an ordered garden and some people have a chaos garden. And Christina definitely has an ordered garden and I definitely have a chaos garden.
Yeah.
Which is part of why after Dahlia Day, I came home with like 150 dahlia bulbs that Christina had extra of that did not fit in the ordered garden.
Yeah, mine are all like perfectly spaced and labeled with like little, what are they called? The little stakes.
The little, garden tags. And then the ones I took all got put in buckets together. And then I just grabbed 4 or 5 at a time and put them in holes.
I have a binder where you can look up the number of the flower and then look at what the like corresponding flower is. And yeah, I did learn about the concept of chaos carrots on TikTok.
What are chaos
So
carrots?
you plant your garden and then you just take carrot seeds and you just into the garden, and then where the carrots come up, you get carrots.
See, I did that the first year I had carrots, but then I went through and like weeded them because they all grow like really close together and you can't leave them like that.
I know.
I don't know if I can recognize carrots well enough to. It took me long enough.
They're pretty different.
It took me long enough to recognize what the difference between carrots and potatoes in Minecraft.
Okay, but that's Minecraft.
That's harder. That's harder to distinguish. I love this comment. A Kristina stream, I feel 10 years younger. That sounds like a very TikTok thing. Yes. I've learned a lot about gardening on TikTok.
Kristina, do you feel 10 years younger being on YouTube again?
No.
10 years older?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I am on YouTube right now talking about TikTok. So maybe I'm recovering a little bit of street cred. We launched, I work at Minecraft for those of you who don't know, and we launched a TikTok recently. And like my whole team, like everybody has like such a different TikTok experience. And so they're all talking about all these gaming references and stuff. And I'm like, I'm on Plant Talk. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I don't understand these references.
I get plants and chickens.
Yeah.
I'm on Chicken Talk too.
Yeah. I still do not have an actual TikTok account. So my experience of TikTok is exclusively TikToks that other people share. So my experience is really varied. Because depending on, it's like who shares TikToks on Instagram or in our Slack or on Facebook or whatever. And I'm getting like, sometimes it's like ADHD TikTok. Sometimes it's like trans rights TikTok. It's just like all, and sometimes it's like garden or plant TikTok. It's all over the place. And it's working well for me thus far to not have a TikTok.
Like a very it's like you have your own For You page.
Yeah.
Very curated
by my friends.
It's like the most accurate.
Yeah.
How have you been? I've been good. I've been, I don't know, busy. I've got like a real person job these days and a house and a kid and a garden, and life is different than it was.
When you said real person job, my first addition I want to make was real person child, real person husband.
I do.
You've got it all.
Yeah, they can in fact verify. Well, most people on YouTube at least know who Joe is because he made videos for a while. Yeah, I got a real person kid. I got real person vegetables growing in my real person garden.
And potentially soon gourds, depending on which of these seeds Kristina takes.
Definitely the corn.
Yeah, show them the corn. That one. Well, that one's cool too.
I think this corn is cool enough to show you. Look at it.
No, I like these two. This one's blue, and then this one's just like rainbow. And you're not supposed to eat this one, right? It's just like
God, I don't know. It's corn.
I think it's just ornamental. I think that's like
I was gonna eat it.
Legendary corn breeder. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you can eat it.
Someone commented on the owl art behind you.
Oh,
thank you. I love my owls.
Very cool.
Oh, can you see these owls too?
Oh yeah, they said the rectangular one in particular is adorable.
It is. It was my first one.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I know I asked you last time I was here, but are these like thrift store finds, or did you?
No, on Etsy there was this really cool guy. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he mostly does like horror stuff, and this was like the only thing he didn't have horror, and it was these owls that are like painted directly on leaves, and then they have like epoxy on top, and it's so pretty.
Oh, someone said it reminds them of a mustache, which I can see.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, it's true.
So Haley asked, "Do you still play board games?" And there are literally board games right here in case we run out of things to do on this stream. We have some ideas for fun ways to pass the time.
We did recently finally get to revive our friend's board game cabin weekend.
Yeah.
I was very excited.
I don't know that that's something I ever really talked about on YouTube because I think we started that after I stopped making videos, but our friends will once a year go and like find a cabin on Airbnb or whatever. And then we will just play board games all weekend. And this was a lot more effective before our entire friend group like had a bunch of babies during the pandemic.
It was a different experience this time for sure.
Yeah, but we made it work. I still played quite a few. Nick said, just came in from my garden, so this was funny to hear. I think you can eat it, the glass gem corn, but it doesn't taste very good. I feel like it's used for flour, maybe. I did hear about that. You can like grind it up for like, flour or something. I'm still kind of learning. My whole gardening approach is like grow it and then figure out what the heck I'm doing, how to harvest and how to eat it. One year I remember I just Googled like, what do I do with all these tomatoes? And there were a lot of articles of people who had my same problem.
Guys, the only thing to do with tomatoes, especially the green ones that you have like 1 billion of at the end of the season, is make pickles.
Ooh, yeah. You made the this. Yeah, I'll have to try that.
I this spring planted a plum tree, and I'm looking forward to what I'm told is the inevitable problem I will have of too many plums.
Oh yeah, I know people. My in-laws have a friend with like 6 plum trees, and she just drops boxes of plums off at like all of her friends' houses. So that's you. You're gonna be the plum friend. Well, you might need like 5 more plum trees, but I believe in you.
I mean, we have the plum tree. We already have the pear tree and the apple tree and the cherry tree, but those all came with the house, and they're all different states of weird. So I don't know how productive they'll be. I will tell you a fun story about Kristina though. So first year in the house, the apple tree was producing apples. They looked a little strange, but it's like, when you have your own apple tree, they're not like commercial grade apples. So they might be a little misshapen or whatever. And we were in my backyard and Kristina was there. And I mentioned that I hadn't actually tried to eat any of the apples yet. So I wasn't sure if they were any good. And she just grabs one off the tree and just takes a big old bite out of it. And was like, they're fine. Like, okay, well now I know they're not poisonous either. So
yeah, I also like my apples kind of sour. Like my husband and we had an apple tree at our old house, and we were in constant disagreement on when the apples were ready because I would just start eating them, and he was like, "They're so sour still."
Well, and what my partner wants to do is make cider with them. He's very excited. He found out you can rent a cider press from the tool library in our neighborhood.
Is he excited?
Yes, he's extremely excited.
I'm a mom now. I guess.
Should we talk about our publishing company?
Probably. We needed a 10-minute warm up.
Yeah, like now there's more people here. People are starting to ask questions.
Yeah. So here's what we're here to talk about today. There we go. So when other people were making bread and, I don't know, learning TikTok dances, what else did people do in the pandemic? Like,
I was there for the bread.
I was listening to NPR on my way over here today, and they were saying that Home Depot profits are down for the first time since like 2006 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because everybody's finally sick of all their home improvement projects and like going outside.
They all did it.
Doing things. Anyway, we made a publishing company. So it started with this one. Maybe
We like
yeah, here, just
put them on top of the seed catalog.
There we go.
And then they'll be
Perfect.
taller.
started with this one.
Yeah.
And then
Mistletoe.
this one. Whoop. And recently, this one. Boom. So yeah, we've done some live shows. Thank you. Comment saying love the cover of the first book. We've done some live shows about this one in particular, but maybe we could just go through and like give a quick summary of each one and maybe talk about I don't know, like how much people know about what we've been doing. So like kind of how this came to be.
Yeah. So this first one, it literally was one of those like graphics that you find online that's like, take the first letter of your first name and your birth date and whatever, and use this chart and figure out your YA book title. And so we had that, and we were all figuring out our YA book titles, and they were fine, they were good. And then at some point we saw that one of the options could be boys' book clubs and other bad ideas, and we're like, that's the best title. And all of us were like, I already have an idea for what YA book that is going to be. And then that year, several of the people in our writing group were doing short stories for National Novel Writing Month instead of doing a full novel. And we also had a friend, there was like a lot of things that had to come together for this to happen. We also had a friend who had been really wanting to do a 24-hour writing marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And so we combined all these ideas together, where the last weekend of Nano, a bunch of us got together at Kristina's house for a 24-hour writing marathon.
Which is too long.
Which
I'm
is
just gonna
too
put it
long,
out
yeah.
there. It's too long.
Somewhere between 15 and 18 hours is the correct amount. And part of what all of our goal for the day was to write a short story that was called Boys Book Clubs and Other Bad Ideas.
Didn't end up that short.
Ended
up pretty long.
They ended up,
10,000
some of them
each.
ended up a lot longer, but fortunately we had all day. Several of the stories from this book were drafted that day.
Oh yeah, mine start to finish.
Yeah. Both of ours start to finish. I think Shay's start to finish as well.
I started.
You started but hadn't finished. Did Liz start and then decide not to?
Liz was there.
Liz is a
remember.
free agent.
Yeah, I think she like started one and then she's like, I don't like this anymore, and then wrote other things all day.
I imagine at least one or two people in this show also listen to How to Win Nano, and so they probably understand from my podcast why Liz is
So anyway, but
off the
basically,
deep end when it comes to Nano.
several of us then had these stories all ready to go, and then other people in our writing group also wrote their own short stories, because we're like, we've been talking about maybe publishing short stories together as a collection. And so we're like, this will be our first one. And we were, originally our plans were, I think, a lot smaller than this. It was a lot more just like, can we just sort of make this happen? We'd really love to all have it out there in a book collection. And, but then, we were like, well, but we want to have like a nice cover. We don't want to just like make something ourselves. And, that means the book has costs and we want to get it well professionally edited. And also profits would be a thing. So we need to have some sort of formal organization with contracts so that everybody is on the same page money-wise. And I was explaining this problem to a friend of mine, and he's like, so you realize you're trying to start a publishing company, right? I told him I did not. But yes, that is what we're doing. And so that's how this one started. And we decided that the best way to launch it was to do a Kickstarter. So we kickstarted the company with this as our first book, knowing that this one was down next in line. Who wants to talk about Mistletoe
Yeah.
Paradox?
Do you want to talk about that one? Or I can talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. Mistletoe Paradox. We had so much fun with boys book clubs and other bad ideas. I'm pretty sure it was like the next Monday. We were like, guys, we should do another one, but we didn't have an idea. So we were like, brainstorm ideas, everybody. Go look up Christmas related things. And I think we spent all of that Monday night just coming up with stuff and mishmashing different words together. And we came up with the Mistletoe Paradox. And we were like, yeah, that's cool. Pretty vague. We'll work with it. And we decided to, it was like mid-December, I think. So like we gave ourselves like 2 or 3 weeks to come up with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all came on Monday night and we sat down for 4 hours from like 7 till 11 when the coffee shop closed. And we wrote our first drafts. And I'm pretty sure everyone ended up writing the first draft of their story in 4 hours. And then we critiqued them.
Yeah. We have not managed to write any of our subsequent stories that quickly ever since then. I don't know where that energy.
The next one took like 2 years, but
Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because they turned out kind of not what you'd expect. They're all like funny and dark and weird, and I love them. They're great.
The word paradox really brought an energy to the stories that you didn't quite expect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our fun like holiday read.
Yeah, and then we have this one. So this one took a lot longer, but that's because we pretty much did this one start to finish in the pandemic, and
We also wrote 2 stories.
yeah, and we each wrote 2 stories. The pandemic was a trying time for a lot of people in a lot of ways, but this one is this one's a little bit harder to describe, but it's sort of like it's got like historical, but also paranormal. And a lot of feminist undertones.
Show them the tombstone.
Oh yeah, and it's very inspired by. Oh my gosh, where is it? There it is. This tombstone, which is basically presumably 2 people, presumably a husband and wife, who should both be dead by now, but only one has a death date. So this book is all of the authors in our sort of writing collective attempting to answer what happened to Annabelle, the one without the death date. And it's very fun. It's very different in tone, I think, from our first 2. I think our first 2 books lean a bit more sort of YA. This one feels a little older, I think. And the cover is beautiful, and we're super excited because it just
older in multiple ways because it's historic.
Yes, also that. Yeah. Oh, if you love illustrations, the hardback, our Kickstarter exclusive hardback, also has lots of fun illustrations. Let's see. Let me find one. It's gonna take me a minute. Oh yeah,
a little backpack.
So each story has a little illustration to kind of go along with what the story is about. Let me find another one to show you the variety.
Haley says, I love it when novels have little illustrations in.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Here's.
It was a stretch goal for us.
Yeah.
We're very happy that it managed to pull through.
Let's see.
I just want to update the 2 of you that Liz was watching on her phone and then went on her computer and then went back to her phone. And at some point in this process also spilled coffee all over herself.
Sounds like Liz.
So,
and Alan's here. Thank you for coming, Alan. Alan is going to be in our 4th anthology that is coming out who knows when, sometime in the future. Yeah. But yeah, do we want to, I guess, if anyone has any other questions, you can put them in chat and we'll probably just like interrupt ourselves to answer them. But otherwise, we're thinking about potentially doing some readings from some of our stories. And we also have like silly games that we might play. So yeah, what do we want to do first?
also, someone wrote a comment in Korean, but unfortunately, my Korean's not good enough to read what it says.
One day soon.
안녕하세요, 여러분.
Cool. Well, do you want to maybe read a little bit of your Annabelle
We're
story?
gonna start with mine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Boy.
You're over here. We'll go this way.
Mine's a nude to start with.
Where
For
can I
sure.
buy these? You can buy these most places you can buy books. So we should probably have a link in here somewhere. I don't know that I've used YouTube enough recently to know the best way to do this. But can I pin a comment? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna Amazon.com/what happened to Annabelle. I'm gonna.
I was gonna say, I think we have the books to read link too, but
Oh yeah,
that's easier.
yeah. Oops, wrong one. Okay, let's see. Here's where buy a copy.
Also,
Okay.
in general, you can just search Kristina's name or any of our names.
Pin message.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
You can buy it there. If you prefer to shop on Barnes & Noble or whatever, what are some of the other places everywhere?
If you live in Seattle, I think the U Bookstore still has a few in stock.
Yeah. But yeah, so that link will take you to What Happened to Annabelle. But I could also, let's see, I could also link to, just a second, if I link to the Monday Night Anthology page, this one's not as easy to, but here. Our books. So I put that there. Can I pin this one? Replace pin message. There we go. So that will take you. That will take you to. I'm just going to double check it. Yeah, that will take you to all 3 of the books. You can get them in paperback or hardback or ebook. All right. So Katrina is going to read a little snippet of her story from What Happened to Annabelle called The Beast. Okay.
Save me, Sophia, in my desperate hour. Be my relief, dear goddess of power. Save me, Sophia, in my desperate hour. Be my break chain, dear goddess of power. Annabelle whispered the words over and over again into the dirt. She knew the spell wouldn't do much, but perhaps it was enough to get her off the ground. Her head lay anchored to the forest floor, heavy and unnatural. Her limbs were disconnected, no longer receiving signals from her brain. She knew she was on her back, but she felt nothing. It was a plumb line curse, or something like it. Save me, Sophia, in my desperate hour. Annabelle felt a twinge of warmth in her eyes, a lightness. Her spell was working, at least a bit. Her chant to Sophia had loosened the weight on her skull, and she was able to move her head just enough to look down at her useless limbs. That's all she needed. Blood of Egypt, blood of Sekhmet, blood of fire, blood of flowers. Her toes responded almost instantly. Her elbows after that. She felt the ancestral blood course through her, breaking the curse and allowing her to finally sit up in the dirt. The bottom of her dress was torn in 3 places. If those had been the first rips, perhaps it wouldn't matter. But she'd already had to repair this piece 6 times. 9 tears were enough to break her connection to the original witch owner, meaning Annabelle would now be casting below her usual level. She was no longer a powerful witch tied to her ancient mothers, but an amateur caster wearing a dirty frock 150 years out of style. Annabelle looked around, searching for any sign of Clarence. She had almost made it back to the exit mirror when she got hit. He had to be nearby, and since he didn't come to help her, whatever hit her must have gotten him too. Annabelle reached into the folds of her skirt and pulled out her pocket watch. No extra time had passed, which means she hadn't been knocked unconscious, just knocked back. But they had already been overdue to leave the Nether before she was knocked down. Years of her life had already been drained away. Every second she stayed in the Nether was a week in the normal world. She had maybe 20 minutes before the effects became irreversible. But this was not the time for panic. It was a time for quick but calm thinking, for fast consideration. Annabelle knew what had to come first. She had to find Clarence.
Yeah, that's good.
We weren't sure where to stop our reading, so
I was like, just go until it feels like a good stopping point. I'm tweeting about this, so I'm distracted. So
Kristina has already read my story many times, so
Yes.
she doesn't need to listen to me read it again. I'm just looking to see good other people. Trying to think of what I don't know what interest there is in how a person runs a publishing company, but one of the things that we sorted out early on is because there were 3 of us who were here to do the primary work of it. We all took on different departments, basically. So based on sort of our skills and interests. So I am the person in charge of finance and sort of like compliance type of operations. So making sure that we have our business license and our LLC set up and doing all of our bookkeeping and making sure our taxes get paid and stuff like that.
Katrina does all of the boring stuff, and we love her so much for it.
So we'll come back to that because Kristina is in charge of marketing for the company, and Maria is in charge of like
making the book.
Yeah, it feels weird to be like she's in charge of publishing for our publishing company, but it really is like the actual like working with the printer and doing the formatting and all of that sort of like making the book stuff.
Basically, Maria makes the book. I make sure people know about the book, and Katrina makes sure we don't go to jail.
Yeah. But what's funny is that we'll have our meetings sometimes, and whenever like I start getting into the weeds talking about a spreadsheet with Maria, you can just see like Kristina's face just like gloss over. And then when Maria and Kristina start talking about like our social media plan, my face does the same thing where I'm just like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm out. So I'm glad that Maria's here for both of us.
And then when Katrina and I are like dominating the live stream, Maria, I literally had to like pull her chair onto screen. I was like, sit closer to me. So we all have our strengths. Should we do another reading or should we play with ransom notes? I don't know. Let's play with ransom notes. I don't know if people are aware of this game. No affiliation with this game. We just like it. It's called Ransom Notes, and it's basically like fridge magnets, and then you can make funny things based on prompts that they give you. But we are going to
make a mess.
Maybe we each take one of our books and try to make a summary.
Try to summarize it.
Yeah. So let's just put a pile here, and we can kind of go through them.
And by the way, at any point, you're allowed to just ask questions and we'll answer them.
Yes.
We have various things that that we can talk about or whatever. But part of the reason we wanted to do this is to give people a chance to, I don't know, check in, say hi, especially those who like supported our Kickstarter and were kind of with the company for the beginning. I don't know if you just want to know how things went or have questions about how it works, especially if you are an author and you want to self-publish.
Yeah.
Because basically what our publishing company is, we talked about the phrase supported self-publishing because a lot of what we're using, since we're not doing, we're not the printer ourselves. So a lot of what we're using is the same tools that an author would use in self-publishing. We're just kind of upping the stakes and the scale by having it be a group endeavor. And, as I said, like with departments and stuff like that. But everything we're doing is theoretically something an individual author could do to self-publish their book. So we have learned a lot of things the hard way.
Yeah, basically it's just like we can all have someone else do the parts that we don't want to do, which is really nice.
Which story am I telling?
Yeah, so
Let's start with the first one.
Well, I think we should each, like maybe over the course of the stream, we each work on one of the books. So I am going to put out there that you do Mistletoe Paradox, you do Annabelle, and I'll do Boys Book Clubs.
Yeah, you just want the easy one.
No, I was thinking of which of your stories I liked the best, and it was in those books. Also, Justin said, I really enjoyed the world building and magic system that emerged in just that snippet of Katrina's story.
Aww, thanks. That was The Beast was definitely probably some of the easiest world building I've ever had in a story. It was inspired by a song that I really like. And it's just like when I would listen to the song, I could just see the entire story in my head, and I just wrote it down.
And then Alan said, you all use the same tools as hundreds of small presses use. It's great how accessible things are now versus 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Alan is actually, people who know me know Alan because we were the 2 Mondays on the main 5 Awesome channels. But Alan and I really reconnected lately because we're both kind of trying to do the same things now in terms of like publishing our books and getting our writing out there and taking it kind of upon ourselves to build that process for ourselves and other writers. So that's been really cool. So thank you for being here, Alan. And I'm very excited to have you in our next anthology. And we've also learned a ton from him because Alan is way better at all of it than we are. It's like, I kind of feel like what Alan does is like the gold standard. I feel like we're constantly like looking at.
Yeah.
Your
Alan equals 3 of us.
Exactly.
Actually, more than probably.
Exactly. Jack said, I've been trying to write for a few years and stumbled upon this channel a year ago. What? Okay, that actually is like the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I didn't know that anybody was discovering my channel nowadays. Hopefully, Jack, you know about my podcast, How to a Nano, because we actually make new content there and it's all about writing.
And there's a Discord community for How to Win Nano.
Which Katrina helps moderate.
Yeah. We actually have, we have 2 fantastic volunteers who moderate our Discord. And then Katrina is in charge of making Liz and Kristina go check the moderator chat. Because I'm the one who has alternate means to contact them.
So Nick asked, any plans to take on other authors and help them publish? That is a question that we know that we will get and we don't have a good answer for yet. I think probably the best answer is we would like to. Right now, we're still just kind of trying to figure out how to like manage our own stuff. But I think the ultimate goal would be to be able to do that. But yeah, no plans right now because I don't think we have like the infrastructure. But
it would be great to hear from those of you out there that might have that kind of interest. Like, what exactly would you be looking for? Because that's the other thing is there's both what we want to do and there's also what people are interested in having.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a big difference between I wish that your publishing company would basically take on my story and publish it like any of the, big name publishers and take all the costs and a big chunk of the royalties or whatever. That's totally separate from I am interested in self-publishing. I'm happy putting up the funds for it and everything and doing a lot of work, but I just feel very lost. And I wish there was someone to help with that. Like, those are totally different products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I would love to hear what people are looking for or what they would want. Just in kind of helping us figure out, what would even be feasible for us down the road. In the meantime, Justin is here. That reminds me, Kristina, have you seen the new Quidditch game? The Team Hypercube nostalgia was strong when I found out. I have a complicated relationship with Harry Potter related properties right now. And so I am not as informed as I could be. But I have been hearing that there's potentially a new Dokapon kingdom in the works. I think maybe it's just in like Asia or Europe or something now, but you can guarantee if and when there is a new Dokapon available in the US, we're going to figure something out. So, Justin, you should do a Google search and see if there's any updates on that. Jack said, that's cool. Check it out. Let's see. I found from being in my early 30s that these days short story books fit my lifestyle so much more. It will make me take a year to finish a single book now. Honestly, it's so nice because you can read, like with short story anthologies, you don't actually feel like you haven't finished the book because you've finished a few stories and it's I'm just making my way through. So I actually really have enjoyed that as well.
One of my favorite compliments someone gave us was that our books are like excellent bathroom books.
I'm okay with it.
For that exact reason. I was like, totally. I don't know that we're going to market that direction, but I like where your head's at.
I tell artists that sometimes. I'm like, I would love this in my bathroom. And it was someone who did mermaid stuff because I have a mermaid bathroom and I love good art for bathrooms. I feel like you're going to look at art in a bathroom more than you'll look at other art. And I have always had to qualify that with I mean this as a compliment. This is a great bathroom piece. I'm not saying you have bathroom quality art. But yeah, let's see.
I can't find any positive nouns. I have a lot of upsetting stuff. I just don't like the word love.
Oh, friend. That's good. There's more if you want to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Important question. Is sneezing a good feeling or a bad feeling?
Ooh.
I think it's a good feeling. Unless it like you have to sneeze. The feeling of needing to sneeze is a bad feeling. The
Mhm.
feeling of having sneezed is a good feeling.
Mhm.
That's what I think.
The sneeze itself can be a good feeling.
This is your
Oh,
tray,
my
by
little
the way.
thing.
And I think you do it on the back.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Justin has not come back with Dokapon news, so I don't know if he's paying attention. Let's see. This one's good. Oh, this one's good. Now we're all just very focused on making refrigerator poetry. Well, how about I could read a snippet from my story while you guys continue to work on that. I have a feeling this is going to take us most of the time. You can like just put more out. Look, we got so much room.
Okay.
We're gonna need them all. Okay, so I'm gonna read a few pages of one of my stories from What Happened to Annabelle. It's called The Corrections Department. Let me find it. I believe it's where is it? Oh no, wait.
I was gonna put this out there. Corrections department might be my favorite thing of Kristina's that I've read from her. I just really love this story.
Thank you. That's really nice. One last question. What should I eat for dinner? Okay, this is important. What should Jack eat for dinner?
Breakfast.
Ooh, like a breakfast
for
for dinner
dinner
situation.
Ooh,
Do you ever make pancakes, Jack? I'm just saying, pancakes for dinner.
We did promise that we were just generally going to have a good time. And I feel like I'll feel good if I know that Jack has pancakes for dinner.
Yeah. What if Jackie's gluten-free?
I will do some pancakes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Colin Barrow, hello. Congratulations on releasing your new book. Thank you. I was just about to read my story from this book. So I will do that now. And then I will go back to poetry. All right. So the corrections department. Before. Annabelle had been Clarence's entire life, for better and for worse. Now he lay on his deathbed, coughing phlegmy blood into a worn handkerchief, and all he could do was think of her. Clarence was a simple man who mostly kept to himself. Even here, at the end, no visitors had come for him. He had all the time in the world to run through their most pivotal moments together in his mind. There was the day he and Annabelle met. Clarence remembered the warmth in his cheeks as he told the other boys about her on the grass field outside their school. He gesticulated wildly as he told of how he'd met her at a street dance a few towns over, how he'd spun her round and round beneath the moonlight. Their first date, he had told the story so many times it was though it'd been burned onto his tongue. A small picnic on a lake, a bouquet of flowers, the scandalous thrill of skinny dipping. His buddies chided him for never bringing her around, but he assured them Annabelle was indeed a private soul who preferred having Clarence all to herself. Just the two of them and the whispering of the wind for company. The song of the crickets for a melody, the light of the stars to guide them. She was very romantic. And who could forget their wedding day, canceled due to a fire in the church's basement that same morning? It was ruled an arson, though the perpetrator was never caught. Clarence and Annabelle, of course, took this as a bad omen, opting instead for a very quiet elopement overseas, far from everyone they'd ever known. Others told Clarence how envious they were of his relationship with Annabelle, how well they seemed to fit together, to fill every crack within the other. The townsfolk never understood why the pair moved out of town to a secluded farm miles away, why they never had visitors. But Clarence liked it that way. He kept busy and found purpose in the small farm. They never had children of their own, but Clarence kept cows and chickens and grew prize-winning watermelons. Watermelon champion, in fact, 10 years running. Clarence gazed at his collection of blue ribbons propped up on the nightstand beside his hospital bed. Annabelle had been the perfect wife. Can't complain, he often said. Even as he got older and started to realize that she wasn't enough, that the life he'd built around her wasn't enough, she never said a word. Annabelle stayed with him, seared into him, defined him, even on the days he wished she wouldn't. Now, The days he wished he could just blink her out of existence. Now, though, he wished he had a photo of her to set beside his ribbons. He wished she could be there, holding his hand as the sickness drained his life away. Wished she could bring him a cup of her ginger tea, the kind he'd always imagined her making when he wasn't feeling well. Wished she could brush her lips gently across his forehead, smooth back his hair, and tell him it was all going to be okay. But she wasn't going to do those things, couldn't do those things, because Annabelle wasn't real. She never had been, not for one moment. She felt real, of course. He often imagined the way her eyes might twinkle when she laughed at his jokes. Clarence wasn't a funny man, but he imagined Annabelle laughing anyway, because she was kind and giving and loved him deeply. He wrote her countless letters while away fighting in the war, and he could almost picture how she dabbed at her eyes as she read them, the very same letters he found piled. He wrote her countless letters while away fighting in the war. The very same letters he found piled unopened on his floor upon his return. It had started innocently enough, like most lies do. There'd always been a simple means of explaining away her absences. It was easy enough to keep up the charade. He went to functions himself, and he made excuses for her. Easy lies that rolled off the tongue. Sorry, Annabelle is home recovering from pleurisy. Apologies, Annabelle is tending to her ailing mother upstate. Annabelle is on sabbatical collecting wild mushrooms for a book she's writing, but she sends her love. He got so carried away that when his spot in the queue came up at the town cemetery, when it came time to order his headstone, the town coroner didn't bother clarifying. Clarence went to the funeral home to approve the design, and there it was. Clarence Doyle and Annabelle Doyle, chiseled side by side for all eternity. He couldn't very well send it back. It would just have to be. Once Clarence was dead and gone, it would no longer be his problem to contend with anyway. What did it matter to him if the spot beside him laid forever empty? When tuberculosis struck, Clarence barely tried to fight it. He was just so tired. Tired physically and tired of lying. As he lay on his deathbed, his imminent end felt like an old friend coming to release him, and he was not scared. He was ready. Death meant he'd finally be free of Annabelle. After. Do you guys want me to keep going, or should we end it there?
Oh, no, you have to.
Yeah, I think you have to keep going.
Okay. After. Clarence wasn't ready to open his eyes. Not yet. There were butterflies in his stomach. He had all of eternity, all to himself. What would he do first? Next, a voice boomed from somewhere up ahead. Clarence's eyes sprung open, expecting marshmallow clouds, sparkly golden gates, and sweet-faced cherubs with gleaming trumpets. Instead, he stood in a queue. Plush golden dividers separated his particular queue from those on either side of him, and up ahead, people dressed as angels waited behind counters like a row of heavenly bankers. Then Clarence remembered that he was dead. He supposed they must be real angels. Next, another voice called, and the queue inched forward. Clarence hadn't quite been prepared for heaven to feel like being jostled through a busy security line at the airport, but the smile on his face held fast. Fanfare or no, this was still the first day of the rest of his life. Next! A yellow light flashed at the nearest kiosk. Clarence realized he'd made it to the front of the queue. He made his way to the counter with more pep in his step than he'd felt in years. Name? The angel asked, all business as she pulled a pencil out from behind her ear. She was adorned in glittering robes that wafted gently despite the stillness of the air, and her skin gleamed with dewy perfection. And yet she still looked bored to tears. It seemed that even in the afterlife, customer service was a drag. Clarence Doyle, he said in earnest, wanting to make this as easy as possible for her. Single male from Earth. Well, Clarence, single male from Earth, she raised an eyebrow. Won't your wife be surprised when she gets here? Clarence felt a sudden hollow pit forming in his stomach. What wife? Please wait over there, the angel said automatically, gesturing off to the left and trailing glitter from her fingertips. He followed the line of her arm toward a waiting room, where incomplete parties was printed in gold on a banner that hung over the door. I'm sorry, there must be some sort of mistake, he stammered, tugging at the starched white collar of his shirt, regretting the much too formal outfit he'd chosen to be buried in. All at once, he had the uncomfortable feeling he was still living a lie, even in his death. I'm not married, he insisted, sweat beading on his forehead. There's no one coming. I've heard that one before. There's no skipping the line, sir. You have to wait just like all the other widows. But the angel flashed her kiosk light, trying to wave down the next person in line. Clarence stayed rooted to the spot, refusing to vacate the counter. I'm not sure what you're talking about, he tried again. I'm really not married. The angel sighed, turning the light back off. She swung her screen around, the computer appearing to be running Windows XP, and gave Clarence a pointed look. This yours? She tapped a shiny fingernail on the screen. A photo of a gravestone was displayed there, with Clarence's etching just as he'd designed it. Clarence Doyle, with his birth date and death dates below. And beside his name, of course, was another. Annabelle Doyle. He gulped. Yes, that's mine, but there's been a mistake. You see, the angel sighed again. This is your ticket. It has 2 passengers, and you cannot enter the afterlife until your entire party has arrived. Annabelle has no death date, she pointed at the screen. So please go into the waiting room and wait until she gets here. My ticket, Clarence's forehead wrinkled, to what? The angel was starting to grow impatient. Heaven, she said, as though it was the most obvious thing in the world. But aren't I already in heaven? He asked, the little hairs on the back of his neck tingling. Now, the angel gave him a pitying look. If this is your version of heaven, I am quite sorry. Okay, good point, Clarence said, trying to get his head around what was happening. The angel reached to turn her light back on, but Clarence leaned his elbow on the counter. I don't understand, though. Not everyone has a gravestone. Correct, sir, the angel said. So what happens to them? What if someone is cremated? Then they go to the cremations terminal. Which terminal is this? This is gravestones. Right, Clarence blinked. What about other religions? The angel gave a heavy sigh. As much as I would love to continue educating you on the inner workings of Death's routing center, I can assure you there is a terminal for everyone. Now, it's time for you to go into the waiting room. But Clarence tried once more to argue, but this time when the angel flipped her light back on, she refused to make eye contact with him again. Next, she said, waving down the next person in line. He could see their interaction was over.
Nice.
Thank you. There is much more to learn about the inner workings of Clarence's time in Death's waiting room. So,
one of my favorite comments that I ever, because when we do our editing for our stories, like all the writers are part of the critique process, and both in like a big picture way and also line edits. And one of my favorite line edits that I ever got to give to Kristina was, it's heaven because they never had to upgrade to Windows 10.
Yup. Oh, thank you guys. I need to know more about those prize-winning watermelons. Well, let's find what seeds you must have used.
I think I finished my poem.
Oh man, I'm not even close.
You're reading.
Thank you guys. Yay.
And reminder that is only one of the stories that Kristina has in the book, because we, for the most part, all wrote 2 stories. Maria wrote 2 stories combined into one story.
Yes.
The easy way out.
Wait, how did I?
They might be in the other basket.
Yeah.
There are many seeds.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, if you're not going to use this, then I'm going to use this. Okay, let's see.
There's so many melons.
But which ones are prize winning?
Well, I don't know. There's these 3 melons. Are any of these the watermelons?
Probably this one. I think it's these.
I just realized I should check to make sure I didn't just like skip right by it.
Okay, I need you guys to carry
to
this
talk so
because I have to.
poems.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably. This does look like a very prize-winning wallet. Baker Creek heirloom seeds. Wilson's sweet watermelon, popular variety in the 1960s. Round, mottled fruit. MOTTLED. Mottled. Outstanding flavor! Exclamation point. Hardy disease-free vines. Fruits to 20 pounds, often rather smaller.
Yeah, I looked for the baby ones because
Baby watermelons.
I need to be able to eat it in a day, and I doubt that's possible there, but I tried.
Wait, why do you need to eat it in a day?
I really don't like it when you like cut them up and put them in the fridge. It's just not as good. And Jacob will not do enough.
So you have to personally carry
I
the
have
weight
to
of eating
carry
an
the
entire
weight.
watermelon.
Yeah, exactly.
While Kristina is writing her poem, if any of you have been Kristina's fans for a really long time and want to ask her questions about her life, I'll just answer them for her.
Best way of doing it.
I will say it did take some gentle nudging from Maria and I to get Kristina to be willing to do a live stream again. She's like, I haven't been on YouTube in forever.
I'm not looking at yours. I'm looking for.
Fine.
Yeah.
Well, I love the little like claps and stuff for your reading.
Yeah.
For those who maybe weren't here when we started this and are wondering why we are so intently looking at like down, so these are the words in front of us. And they're from a game called Ransom Notes, where you basically make magnetic poetry. And so we have each been tasked with making a poem that describes one of our 3 books. I've got Annabelle right here. It looks like Maria is done with Mistletoe Paradox.
Yeah, it's just not great, but
Yeah.
it's there.
But Kristina was reading her excerpt, so she didn't have as much time to write her poem as the rest of us did. Trying to think of what other things we wanted to talk about in terms of like the company or the book.
You could always talk about Dome Sweet Dome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So our next book coming out will be called Dome Sweet Dome, and it is a sci-fi comedy. It is space suburbia. We have a lot of time to come up with catchy taglines for it, though I do like the one we put in the back of Annabelle. So because we did that, we like doing that thing kind of like it's James Bond, where at the end of the book it tells you what the next one is, and it says next in the Monday Night Anthology, Dome Sweet Dome, space suburbia has never been more domestic. So we are actually in the process of writing those right now. In fact, I believe the first story just got finished, and we're going to read it on Monday. So that is very exciting.
Very exciting.
But we'll start going through those. We definitely learned our lesson with Annabelle to only have everyone write 1 story, because the thing about having everybody write 2 stories for an anthology is that it's basically like doing 2 books. We only had to market and finish 1 book, but in terms of getting like wrangling all the authors, doing critiques, doing line edits, doing the formatting, it is 2 books. And it is like, here, can you give me one of the paperbacks for Annabelle? It's kind of hard to tell because we have the hardback for Annabelle and the paperbacks of the other 2, but like she's thick, she's chunky book. Slightly bigger than boys book clubs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your idea of how they are. I like that we managed to keep Mistletoe short for like a fun holiday read. But the only reason that is because, as we said, we all had to draft it in 4 hours. So none of us could write super long stories, as some of our authors have a tendency to do. When we were doing Annabelle and trying to figure out story order, one of the things I wrote down was like how many pages each story was. And it's like a lot of them were like 8, 9, 12, and then one of them was 21.
Said lovingly.
Said love.
Yes. I can't find the like articles that I need. That's the problem.
Hey, you want to talk about the paperbacks and how they're
Oh
different?
yeah. So in terms of like, I want to just, is the process getting easier or more difficult as you write and release more books?
Bit of both.
It is a bit of both. I would say each time we publish a book, we learn a lot. I would also say our standards go up because now we know what is possible and what we want out of the books. So that kind of makes it more difficult. But for instance, like when we did the Kickstarter, before the Kickstarter, our thought was that we would do 2 books a year. That was like our original, like, that's what we'll do. And so that's why in the Kickstarter, it's like, we've got our first one and we're ready to do a second one this year. And that was possible because we'd already written everything for Mistletoe Paradox. Like Mistletoe Paradox was basically done when we launched the Kickstarter, and Annabelle was still in the works. So in our minds, we were going to finish up Annabelle and release it the next spring, and then maybe get onto the 4th anthology right away. And it turns out that pace is just absolutely impossible. The other thing that we've definitely realized over time is the amount of time we have to give ourselves is so much longer than we ever imagined. Not like every single step of the process, you minimum have to assume an extra week, often extra 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And depending on which step of the process. So like one of the things that Maria's had to deal with a lot is our printing company that we print through. One of the things we decided this time is like, okay, from now on, we have to assume that it is not going to print correctly. So when we get our first copy of it to our proof copy, we have to assume there's going to be stuff wrong with it. And we have to assume we're going to have to do that at least twice and build it into our timeline so that we're not trying to do like rush shipping and rush printing on the proofs just so that we can get our book out in time. Because when we first started, it's like, oh, okay, we'll give ourselves a nice little buffer for printing and everything. And that buffer did not assume essentially having to do the proof process 3 or 4 times.
It takes surprisingly between 1 day and 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Usually 3 weeks.
And that's the other thing is that it's all over the place as far as like sometimes when we upload something, they like approve it and start printing right away. And sometimes it takes them a week. And sometimes it's like the shipping's really fast and sometimes it takes forever. And you kind of can't predict that. So
another thing you can't predict.
Another thing you can't predict, which is funny, is yeah, okay. I was like, I wonder how well these will show up on camera. But they show up pretty good on camera that these are not the same color. So Maria, do you want to explain what's happening here?
Yeah, the files were, well, okay. The files looked like they were exactly the same, but this one is from Amazon and this one is from our other printer. And they are slightly different. Like we had to do 2 different covers just because they're like, this one's like 1 millimeter thicker than the other one.
I don't know if you'll be able to tell on stream, but like the Amazon one literally is thicker. Yeah,
because
you can tell.
The paper is just
because the
thicker.
paper is thicker. And it's something you don't necessarily think about with books, but that means that we needed a different file for this one because the spine is wider.
Yeah.
And so you need a different, like our graphic designer had to make 2 different files, one for Amazon and one for the printer, because Amazon's paper is thicker. And so therefore this book is a little bit thicker. It also means that we had to check the formatting twice. Because like literally, page 97 on this one does not look like page 97 on this one.
Yes, unfortunately.
And of course the hardback is different too. So it's like 3 different books that you have to do.
Our designer is in the chat. Waving in embarrassment.
It's not our designer's fault that we had to do it so many times.
And it's also not your fault. You're amazing. It's not your fault that the colors different. Although that's kind of like a happy accident. I like both of them.
Well, that's the thing is that once we did it, we were like, which one do we like? And I feel like on a day-to-day basis, I changed my mind because I think they're both cool. Like, it's this one's definitely more goldish. It's a lot like more subdued, which is kind of cool. This one's a lot brighter and more yellow. And I don't know. Now that I've seen them, like, I'm kind of thinking that I need to have both copies on my shelf.
Together, they're the best. But again, this is like the files. Yeah, they're different files, but they looked exactly the same. Like the colors were exactly the same. This is just a weird printing thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to collect them all, Amazon and Barnes and Nobles.
Our design is confirming it's not like he put a different color in one file. It's literally just the way they process and print them. It made the color different, and that was something we did not see coming at all.
No, it didn't happen in our other books, so it's weird.
Okay, I think I'm ready. So are we ready to do our ads. I
Sure.
actually think we should take pictures of these and post them on our social, like
Oh,
with
yeah.
the books.
We definitely should.
Oh God.
Wait, I want to see. Did we miss any questions while I was explaining this?
Yeah, there was one. I think.
Oh, no,
Plans
we
for
already did that.
publishing books by a single author as
Oh
well.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, we can talk about that after we do this.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
We'll do this first, then we'll get that one. Okay, let's go in book release order.
Okay, so someone hold up Boys Book Clubs. So this is our first book, Boys Book Clubs and Other Bad Ideas. And here is my poem. I have written this book. In most of the stories involves curious school friends, world explosion, devil charm soul, disappear, cute dazzling kiss, absorb power, go home.
Excellent. Very
That tells you
evocative.
everything you need to know.
Very evocative.
Okay, mistletoe.
Mistletoe.
paradox. Do
Mistletoe.
another one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold it. Okay.
This is just one of the stories, and it's mine. I wanted to do Kristina's, but I didn't find the right words. So anyway,
Couldn't find zombie.
yeah. Did find, however, dangerous woman cadaver visits guy. Try nibble. He punch.
That's amazing.
Which also didn't fully happen.
No, I love it.
I love it. That is an excellent depiction of your story.
Thank you.
Maria's mistletoe paradox story is definitely one of my favorites of of our stories that we've.
That was
we've
my
done.
favorite to write so far.
It's just
Very good.
it's just really really beautiful and really like I don't want to use the word professional, implying that the rest of our stories aren't professional, but it very much feels like it feels like that's the kind of story I would read with a book that like NPR or Oprah recommended to me. It's like this is like an author who knows their stuff.
I
Okay,
feel like
guys.
mine was mostly inspired by Shay's story
Okay.
in the first book.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
So-
So here's Katrina. Do you want to hold?
here's mine for Annabelle. Betrayal, abuse, murder, mistake, but actually hope, delight, also struggle. Why do they avoid sleep?
Oh, that's good.
That's amazing.
That's really good.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
I love that actually.
I think we should do this again, but I feel like we should take some.
Take pictures.
Yeah, let's take some pictures. How do we do this in a way that looks
Take
pretty?
that back, probably.
Yeah, but like this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not the right book.
Well, somebody needs it.
Yeah.
Let's just put all three.
Okay. Well, we got to do one of each. Maybe we'll do it like this.
Mm-hmm.
While
Okay.
Christina's being a social media star, to answer your other question, publishing books by just one author is also something that
I
we've
like
definitely
this.
been thinking of. And specifically, several of our authors, Kristina included, have books that they're currently working on and finishing that would be good candidates for 84th Street as something that we would publish. And so we're still kind of working that out because part of the struggle is that
Sorry.
We turn the light off for a second. I feel like that'd
Yeah.
be better.
All right. I did it.
sorry,
You
stream,
do
for a
you.
moment, we're going to be in darkness
Nah, it's perfect. No, this is great.
because it makes
We
for
should try
a
with
better photo
this
taking
next to-
opportunity.
With what? Oh, okay, yeah.
like, next to instead of
Okay.
Oh, instead of
Curious.
covering it.
yeah.
yeah.
One of the issues we run into with trying to publish for just one person is kind of how and to what extent we ask that author to absorb any of the costs or not. We set up the publishing company with these anthologies in mind, and so everything about how we do profit sharing and royalties and how much money the company keeps so that it can keep publishing books is based on this idea of there being a group of authors that are all working together, the three of us included, since the three of us are doing all of our work for free, basically. And so how does that look different when we have just one author instead of 7 to 12? We had 10 for Annabelle. If everybody who has expressed interest in writing for Dumb Sweet Dumb writes for Dumb Sweet Dumb, we will actually have 13.
Will we? 13?
Yes,
Okay.
That's very
Um,
cool.
which would be really cool.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. I've really liked having the different voices in all of our books. So it's fun.
Should we talk about what other things we write, like for individual type stuff? Maria, do you want to go first?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Maria, tell us about dragons.
Yeah, I found these wonderful individuals because I wanted to write a book about dragons, and it took a very long time. It took like 8 years. I finally wrote it. It was 185,000 words.
Oh my gosh.
And then it stayed as a draft forever. Anyway.
Okay, now we can move the light back on.
Okay, well.
Also, Alan offered to help us figure out our single author publishing thing because he's obviously done this.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, heck yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
So,
oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, we do have a good resource. Alan, again, the gold standard of having your own indie publisher.
Yeah.
We got a few questions now. How do you decide on a new theme? It has been different every time. So, Chase here. So the first one I kind of already gave the long story for. That was basically the title came to us. It was fun. We were inspired. We wrote something. Mistletoe Paradox, we on purpose came up with a prompt because we liked doing boys book clubs. And we're like, let's do this again. This is a great way to like incentivize everyone to write. What's our next prompt going to be? And we literally just all brainstormed stuff. We brought it together one day and we kind of mashed some of them together. And we were like, Mistletoe Paradox. Perfect. Let's go with it. What happened to Annabelle, and this is explained more in the beginning of the book, was inspired by an actual gravestone that I saw at the beginning of the pandemic when I was doing a lot of walking in cemeteries to avoid live humans. So they all came from different places. Dome Sweet Dome, we also did differently. So with Dome Sweet Dome, because now we're more established as a company and the three of us know a lot more about what makes a book easy or hard to publish and market. There's a lot of things we didn't really know or think about when we did the first two, but things like being able to define a specific genre that you can categorize it as when you're uploading everywhere. For Kristina, like if she's going to do any targeted ads as part of her marketing or something like that, like who's she looking for? When we're designing the cover, what kind of cover does it need to look like? What should it be evocative of? Like one of my favorite cover designs that we had for What Happened to Annabelle that we rejected, I loved it. It was my favorite cover. And Maria also liked it. And then we were like looking at it and then I go, Maria, it looks like a true crime novel. And she's like, it does. And we realized like we can't have something that looks like a true crime novel because that's not what Annabelle is.
Right.
So even though the cover was gorgeous and we loved it, it was not right for the kind of book we made. And so this time we basically had a day with all the authors and writing group where we sort of did a guided workshop to figure out, like we had a couple of different ideas. We had some like quiet brainstorming and then bring it together, people voting on like which ones they liked, whatever. And then we took all that information and the three of us sort of codified it into what do we think we can both write and sell? Because that's kind of what we were missing with the earlier books is we found things that we could write that were very inspiring, but they were very hard to explain to people and to sell to people.
Yeah. Or even pick like a genre.
Or even pick a genre.
Yeah.
For the book.
Like one of the weirdest things is that one of the primary genres that came out from What Happened to Annabelle is feminism. And that was not part of the prompt. That wasn't what we told anyone. It's just so many stories naturally had those elements that we were like, I guess that's one of our genre. But because it wasn't planned, not every single story does.
Well, because if you think about the prompt, like the idea of like, why has this presumably woman sort of like abandoned or left or been separated from
been
this,
abandoned or left or whatever
by this man, I feel like that just sort of lends itself to a number of like very feminist like interpretations of that. But yeah, that wasn't something that we set out to do, which was kind of cool to see it come together. But it is going to be much more like cohesive. I think people are going in with a better understanding of like what we're looking for and how everything's going to sort of fit together. But I think that like reading Annabelle, it's still like a really fun experience because there's such a wide variety in what you're going to get. So I'm super proud of that book. It was just like when it comes down to like the brass tacks of like we have to pick two genres in the drop down, it's like this is
and
hard.
honestly, I think that's part of why we wanted to try to codify genre and theme more in the next book, is because it is frustrating when you're really proud of a book and can't figure out how to get it to people, can't figure out how to explain it and sell it.
I like Lorenzo's question. Should we expect a true crime novel so the cover design doesn't go away? I like the way you think.
Yeah. We'll get on that. We'll find a true crime.
We also had, do you guys ever struggle with starting the process of writing? How do you overcome that?
Deadlines.
I mean, pushing back the release date of our book. I guess overcome it.
Well, I mean, that is the reason that our writing group is so awesome. It's accountability. Like, I wouldn't do anything by myself. And honestly, half the time I don't do anything, even with the writing group. But then when they tell me that I have to write by like 3 weeks from now, otherwise I'm not in the book.
That you're making.
You're still gonna have to format it. Something that I would say that is a tip you can apply for yourself, that is basically something that we as a group have been really good at pushing on each other, is sometimes the thing that stops you from starting is you're thinking about writing an entire book. Like you've kind of got the whole project, the whole picture in mind, with all of its challenges and struggles. And what you really need is just to break it down into the smallest possible starting place. And I know that's happened a lot, especially when it comes with us and revisiting an old Nano project. There have definitely been plenty of times when Kristina's like, I know I need to go do this and I don't want to. And we just sort of like are like, just tonight, just open up the Scrivener file and look to see if like past Kristina wrote herself any notes. That's also a very good tip that I learned years ago.
Current Kristina got mad at past Kristina enough times that I now usually do leave myself notes, even if I don't remember. Like one night I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is like try to remember where I was with like last year's Nano project and write myself some notes. And they were already there because past Kristina was awesome.
Pro tip, whenever you're stopping to write something and you haven't finished it, always like write yourself like what comes next.
I make a readme file basically. I'm like, start here, and then I'm like, here are the problems I was having, here's what I still need to do. Like,
well, and even just like I'll clarify stuff of like, you're going to see 3 different outline files. The reason that I've kept all 3 is XYZ. This is the one to start with or whatever. And one of the times it's like I wrote it sort of as a letter to myself, and one of the things I included at the end was basically like, this is a really good book and I think you should finish it. I think you should be proud of it. Like basically knowing that the future me was maybe going to feel kind of daunted by coming back to it, to have the past me be like, no, when you were writing this, you actually really liked it and you thought it was really good. And I know you can only remember the problems right now, but the stuff that worked is really working. So
yeah, that's so nice. Like giving your future self a pep talk. Like, no, don't get overwhelmed. This is worth coming back to.
Good.
Please.
So that's something we've done. Also, Shay's very excited to try and write true crime. Though does point out she would need to expand her writing comfort zone. That's okay, Shay. We'll just do it the way we've done it before, where I just tell you what to write and then you do all the work. It's worked out really well for the two of us.
I think we should swap books and do another one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, how long are we going?
Till 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember how long we were going for.
Yeah.
Okay. We still have questions though.
Yeah. No, I have 2 and 1. How am I going to decide?
All right.
Okay. This time I'll do boys book clubs.
I like that question though. We should answer that.
Which one?
The authors have done Nanowrimo. How much of a difference was there between writing for Nanowrimo and writing for these?
I would say the biggest difference for me is like kind of the whole crux of Nanowrimo is like quantity over quality. Like you want to get the words down because you can always go back and like edit, and editing theoretically is easier than like staring down a blank page. I would say the biggest difference between like a Nanowrimo first draft and a short story specifically for these anthologies that we've been doing first draft is that there is no expectation with Nanowrimo that anyone ever has to read what you're doing. But with these, the next step is group critique. And so I would say that there's a bit more pressure on getting that first draft right. And it's probably even like the second draft that's going to go to the critique group, because you want to make sure that, like, well, first of all, you want to make sure that like your friends still think you're a good writer. And there's really no judgment in our writing group. People will often come and be like, hey, this is super rough, like just looking for feedback. And we're all very aware of how the writing process works, but there is more pressure to like have something that has beginning, middle, and end, and like feels like even if it's not like your most polished work, it was like your best go at a first draft. And so knowing that there is another step that you are working toward, as opposed to Nano, like that could just sit on your shelf for 20 years, like some of mine. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest difference for me.
I also, like, for me, I write really long things, and for Nano, it's like a roller coaster of like you start and there's like plot twists and whatever, and I rarely finish my book. Whereas when I'm working for these short stories for anthologies, it's pretty clear from the very beginning. Like it's a very gentle slope when you look at these stories, because it's such a short amount of time to do anything. And so really you're focusing on just one conflict, like one key idea that you're getting across. And so then, unlike when I write novels, I usually have an idea of how it starts and where it ends. And, it's actually a bit simpler.
I think the biggest one is your efficiency of words in a short story is so very different than a novel in general, and especially Nano. Because like Kristina was saying, in Nano, it's really about like get it out there, get the word count out there, knowing that you can like pull it back later. And in terms of like, this is a great way to write an entire novel that gets a lot out there that otherwise you would probably spend way too long trying to like perfect before it even hits the page. But when you try to do that with a short story, it's like, it's so much work to pull it back and get it small again that you can't necessarily have that same mindset of just, I'll write whatever and then fix it later. You have to go in a little bit more clear about the size of your story. There's a really great short story formula that I heard about from the Writing Excuses podcast years ago, where there's basically, it's a math equation for how long your short story is going to be based on how much you're trying to do. And it's sort of like every time you try to add a new character, every time you try to add a new location, every time you try to add some new idea or new bit of interesting world minutia or something, it like adds 750 words to your story or something like that. It was like there was like an addition and multiplier, and it basically was like, if you try to do these, your story is going to be, and then if the math equation's like your story is going to be 20,000 words, like, okay, I'm trying to do too much in my short story. Whereas if it says your short story is going to be 8,000 words, oh, okay, that's actually much more in line with what we're going for. So that kind of efficiency in storytelling is the big difference to me.
Is there a way to add like ed to the end of a word?
I have a Y.
Yeah, there's a Y.
That's not helpful.
There's an exclamation point.
What even is that?
Shay points out it's a lot more intimidating to have to reach a due date set by peers than Nano.
Yeah.
You can give up on Nano. It feels bad giving up on your friends.
It feels bad giving up on Nano too, but yeah, different levels.
That's really nice, Spencer. Thank you for the very nice comment. I feel like my life has come a long way since my early YouTube days, and yeah, things are very good. So
how do you know when the story is done?
Because Maria's like, if you don't send me a final draft by X date, you won't be in the book.
Yeah, there's that.
Stories are never finished, only abandoned.
Also with short stories, I feel like it's done sooner than you think it's done. Like you want to leave it on a little bit of like a not quite finished note.
It's something that you find in a lot of short stories because it's short. It's much more accepting of the idea that you leave the reader with a little bit more of an open question than you would with a novel. At the end of a novel, you want to feel like you pretty much know what's happening. Like you can have a little bit of a teaser at the end of like, but it's really more like, and their adventures continued. Whereas you can almost end a short story on what you would consider a cliffhanger if you've set it up correctly. especially if it's sort of like it's a cliffhanger, but you sort of know what's going to happen. And then you as the reader just get to write that part yourself, that the short story author was just in charge of creating, starting the journey for you, and you sort of finish it. But I also am a terrible person to ask as far as when something is done, because I tend to think and write out of order. So I often know the end of my stories or my nanos sometimes before I know where they start. I actually usually find it's harder for me to figure out where in the story it's supposed to actually begin. And we talked about this the other night, that sometimes I'll just start, if I get stuck because all I can think about is the wrong place to start the story, I'll just start writing that, knowing it's the wrong place. And invariably, it doesn't take more than like a paragraph or two before I end up in the right place. But sometimes you're so focused on something you know is wrong that you can't think of the right thing.
I am not finding the right words.
Do any of you also write poetry? You mean other than the brilliant poetry you're writing right now?
You mean this?
I used to write poetry in high school and college a lot. I have not written it as much as an adult.
There's a poem in Annabelle.
There is a poem in Annabelle. Liz wrote a poem.
And technically, there's a poem in your boys' book clubs as well, Kristina.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that took
Really
me
good one.
about as long to write as the rest of the story.
Which was a couple of hours. Like
A lot of
it
this-
was pretty
A lot of
fast.
discussion about the word ma.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah. I like cliffhangers in short stories sometimes. It always reminds me of like the final shot in the old Twilight Zone episodes that would hint at it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's what's fun about short stories, is that like short stories can ask a question rather than like answering a question. You don't have to have like a whole like moral thematic, like, I don't know, short stories can do exactly what you need them to do and no more, depending on, how long it's going to be and what you're trying to do. So it's very fun to play around with that. And I think because of how much long form content I've written, I struggle with that sometimes, to not have like a full, like I often get into a short story and I'm like, oh God, this is a whole novel. I need to like zoom in on like one interesting piece. Like, what's the most interesting piece? And so there's been a lot of fun, like just learning how to do that and how to not turn all of our short stories into novellas. But yeah, we've been really working as a group on like how to get better at that. Oh, right now, duh.
Yeah.
Let's see.
They're definitely.
There's nothing resembling flowers anywhere.
Are there more, or did you pull them all out?
No, there's more.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Just
that's.
just
Oh yeah.
dump them.
Dump them. Let's see.
We definitely having each other to help with the critiques really helps with what Kristina was talking about as far as like pulling the story back. Because sometimes when you've got the story in your head and it's already really big, it already all exists like in your head. It's all there, even though you haven't written it. And it can be difficult to figure out what part is not necessary, because like to you, they already all exist. And so having the other people in the group that can say like, oh, you could skip over this part or cut this out. And when we're doing the critiques of the stories, like I think it was, I feel like it was like World's Oldest Annabelle, Stephen's story, that the ending wasn't like different, but it was the blocking where the characters were and exactly who said what or whatever was different. And part of what we discovered in critique was like the story could end a lot sooner and be more satisfying. And we were able to sort of give ideas of like, no, you could put like this conversation and combine it with this and put it in this place instead of having that happen over the course of like 2 or 3 locations. And it's that kind of stuff that sometimes it's helpful to have other people to give you advice on. We try to be careful about telling each other what to do, and try to be very clear that if ever we offer ideas, it's like, here's an idea, here's a suggestion, or here, as often I think it's more, here's an example of what I'm thinking when I'm saying this is what it needs. because there's that great old Stephen King quote that's whoever tells you there's something wrong with your story is right, and whoever tells you how to fix it is wrong. And that's totally true. It's like when people are giving you critique and they're saying like, there's, you know, this character is not sympathetic enough. They're probably right. There's probably something about what's happening with that character that's making them not sympathetic enough. And when they start giving you a bunch of ideas about like, they just need a dog, or they need to save this person in this point, or whatever, it's usually not actually what you need for your story. But it can give you some good, I find it's very helpful to hear people's suggestions, even like knowing that they're the wrong thing, because it's like, no, not that. So what's wrong with all these suggestions to me? What doesn't feel right about them? And that leads me to where I need to be.
I found ing.
I could turn palpitate into palpitating.
Okay, here we go.
I have not been as focused on my poetry this time, so I'm nowhere near. Have you seen each other's writing evolve over the course of making these books? Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
So
I
much.
like, especially the first few stories that people submitted for Annabelle. It was basically like every single one of them was my favorite thing that author had written.
Yeah.
Like hands down.
Yeah.
And I was just so impressed and like amazed at like how everyone had grown, and just the way things were just so interesting and polished. Like I said, like Kristina's Annabelle stories, like one of my favorite things that I ever read of hers. One of Shay's stories in Annabelle, Blue Clover Cafe.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to call it one of the other names for the book that I didn't choose. I want to call it Who Killed the Mayor. But that's also probably one of my favorite things I've ever read of Shay's. And so that's been really fun to watch people grow and develop.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I feel like we've all gotten so much better at critiquing too. It's like we have like a very specific method of critiquing, and I feel like knowing how we do that makes it an even safer space for our writers, because they know what to expect coming in. You know, they know that like the first section of critique is them being quiet while everyone just praises them on the things that they liked about their stories, and that, you know, the next portion is parts that like confused them, or that they had questions on, or suggestions or whatever, but that we're always going to start with like lifting you up, which is really nice. So even when you're worried about like what people are going to think or say, you know that they're going to find some good in it, to tell you, you know, to make the whole process easier. My writing has definitely improved wildly since joining writing group and participating in critique. That's from Shay. It's so fun. I mean, we've also been meeting so long that like we've all grown immensely as writers. And it's been really fun to do that together.
Yeah, and we know each other so well that there's something to be said about like the trust.
Bye, Lorenzo. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if we talk about that enough, that I think part of the reason that our books work so well and this company works so well is that we have such a solid writing group, you know?
And we early on were a lot more rigid about how we do critiques, which sometimes I think maybe we got to pull it back a little, but we've become a lot more free with how we do critiques because we know each other so much better.
Yeah.
And we know more about the other person, but more importantly, we know that we're all used to this, and we know that everyone in the room has the capacity, both mentally and emotionally, to ignore what we're saying.
Oh yeah.
And that's actually really big. If you like start doing writing critiques with people and you don't know each other and you're writing as well, you can really easily accidentally be very unhelpful to someone with how you phrase things or answer questions or ideas or suggestions you give. But I think with us, because so much time has passed and we've reinforced that idea so many times of none of our ideas are good ideas for your story, for your book. They're just ideas to try to get you to find the right answer.
Yeah.
And I feel like with people that you don't know as well, and if you're a like younger writer, not necessarily younger in age, but like younger in your writing experience, it's so easy to believe people when they tell you how to write.
Then there is a point in our critique sometimes where like, because the author isn't allowed to speak for like a large chunk of it, where we'll all start arguing about like, well, I think it should be this, and I think it should be this.
And we just like stop ourselves.
There's this point where we're like, I don't think this is helpful to the author anymore. We should probably let them speak. But it can just be fun to sort of ideate on, you know, this world and everything. My favorite critique story, and I don't think this spoils anything about my mistletoe paradox story, but my critique for the mistletoe paradox was very funny because there was disagreement on, there was agreement that there was the wrong amount of death in my story. There was either too much or not enough.
Because there's zombies in the story.
And so like part of the group thought that I needed to ramp the death up way more. And part of the group thought that I needed to not have anyone die at all. And that the only thing they could agree on is that
it was the wrong amount.
It was the wrong amount of death.
And even those of us who expressed an opinion, they were kind of lukewarm. Because like we were all like, no, you really could go either way. It was more like, I guess my preference would be for this. And you know, somebody, you know, but it was really like, no, Kristina, it's up to you. You just need way more or way less. And she's like, that's not helpful. I need to which direction?
At the end of that critique, my notes were like, either you need a lot more death or a lot less. Figure it out. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that was great. And I feel like that question haunted Kristina for a long time, trying to do the edits on that story.
Oh yeah,
because she wasn't sure which direction she wanted to go. And it wasn't, as far as writing group was concerned, it wasn't going to be a better or worse story, whichever direction she went. It was just be a different story.
So you'll have to read the book to find
out. Does she up it or take it down?
Yeah, which direction I went. Without answering, I will say lots of blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of blood.
That's the other thing. The original one, it had like the wrong number of death, and I would say the wrong amount of blood. I think there was too little, like, because it wasn't. Like,
yeah,
it's sort of I don't know. It's like how they have those different rules for movies about whether or not someone actually bleeds when you shoot them.
Yeah,
like ups the R rating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's why like James Bond shoots people and no one ever bleeds in a James Bond movie.
What story have each of you submitted to the group that you were too embarrassed to admit were actually autobiographical, keeping in mind that Kristina's kid is watching? Let's see. Have anything that you guys written been autobiographical?
I mean, my second Annabelle one is, but I'm not embarrassed about that. It's just the second Annabelle story really is just an amalgamation of different experiences I have had with my extended family around death. Mm-hmm. So like the actual setting in the narthex of a church where there's ashes and it's like feels weird. That happened to me. That was like when my cousin's husband died, and I found myself with my other cousin like there while people were picking stuff up, and it's like, this is weird. You know, the idea of there being cemeteries in Ohio with no names and not knowing where your grandfather or great grandfather is buried. Like, I realized a few years ago that if I wasn't on top of it, I could very easily not know where my great grandfather was, because the people who knew were getting old and dying. And I'd seen the gravesite before, but someone else was always driving me there. You know, I was never in charge of like knowing where it was and realizing like, oh, if we're not careful, that knowledge just disappears.
Yeah.
So that I'm not embarrassed about that, but that is like, that story is very autobiographical despite being completely fiction. Yeah. It's just like, it is a fiction that is cobbled together from like entirely true parts.
I really like Shay's answer. Mm-hmm. All right, the jig is up. I own a cat cafe and a magical I can go. First, I'll say, hi, Max. It's mommy. I love you. But I would say probably the closest thing in one of my stories from these anthologies is my story in Mistletoe Paradox, which is probably the one you'd be the most surprised to hear, because my story takes place in like a high school basement party with like a spin the bottle game. And I would say it's sort of autobiographical in two ways. So I sort of like base the parents on who I imagine myself to be as parents, because the parents are upstairs having like a super dorky, like Renaissance fair themed, like medieval costume party, and the kids are super embarrassed of their parents. So I like envision that being myself someday. Sorry, Max. But also I have definitely been, when I was a kid, the awkward girl at like a spin the bottle party where I like have no intention of playing, but my friend invited me because like she was ready to like kiss boys, and I was just like, I don't know about this. So like I definitely like have lived that feeling of being like awkward and like, oh God, what are they gonna try to make me do? So yeah, I would say that I pulled from a lot of like life experience for that story, despite it being about zombies.
And so you never had to suck the demon out of a boy through his mouth?
No, but honestly, looking back, how cool would that have been? No, that was my other story.
No, I'm looking for other places where it could have been autobiographical.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, no. I've never had to suck the demon out of a boy by kissing him. Rats.
Yeah, what a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I write fiction, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. But I guess it's not really autobiographical. The reason I wrote my story the way I did, it's two stories in one, and one of the stories is literally like two kids are like, yeah, this is a fake tombstone, we're just gonna make up a story, and that was me. I was like, it's probably a fake tombstone, I'll just make up a story. And the only part about the rest of it that has any sort of bearing on my life is it talks a lot about flowers and the language of flowers, and my mom has gotten into flowers a lot lately, so it's just kind of been part of my life. Yeah, you guys are not seeing. It's surrounded by flowers.
Oh yeah, there's like a lot of flowers over here.
So many flowers.
Yeah. So the language is flowers.
Flowers
is
like
constantly in my head.
I used to say that all anyone can ever write is autobiographical. It's just how far they go and how willing they are to admit where it came from. Because it's, if you think about it, it's like you can't write anything that doesn't start in your head. And everything in your head is just an amalgamation of your life experiences and what you've seen and done in the world. So everything you're writing is coming from somewhere. Like no matter how much invention and imagination there is, it's all inspired by that. Like I said, like my Annabelle one with the ashes, it's like that the actual problem they're facing there, the actual premise is totally invented as far as I'm concerned. Like that has not actually happened to anyone in my family, but it was built on all these ideas coming together. And like Kristina was saying, it's like her actual experience as a teenager and like the feelings of what it's like to be in that room when like there's expectations that you're not really sure about how you want to match them. And that idea of like how big the consequences feel when you're young. And then it's like what her story does is just take that further and said, what if the consequences were really extreme? And what if the problem is that no one understands how extreme those consequences are, which like when you're a teenager and you kind of want to kiss someone, but kind of not, like it does feel like no one understands the extreme consequences that are in front of you. And everyone you try to talk to about it tries to downplay it. And that's basically what happens to the protagonist in Kristina's story.
It's like, nobody kiss anyone. And they're all like, don't be such a baby. And she's like, no, I saw it on the news.
Joe says, yeah, that's deep and all, I guess. I just wanted you to tell embarrassing stories about yourself.
I could probably tell embarrassing stories about my husband if anyone's interested in those.
Is writing therapeutic for each of you, or is it more about the craft?
God, no, I hate writing.
Going to writing group is a little bit therapeutic for me, though. Like, even if I don't do anything, it's like this, even if I don't do anything productive there, it is this like safe, nice environment that I know I'm going to leave feeling better than like when I got there. So I think things adjacent to writing are therapeutic for me. And like just getting something down. Like
having written is a very therapeutic.
Oh yeah, like the best part about writing is having done it. Actually doing it is pretty tortured.
I will say that when it's like very clear and just like coming out of my head, I've got the pictures well, or when I am journaling, like I can't remember who said it, but there was a quote I'd seen a long time ago, which is like, I don't know what I think until I write it. And I've definitely had that experience a lot, where writing my own thoughts, just kind of like journaling or going through my problems on the page, is therapeutic, because that act of turning like nebulous thoughts into concrete words and sentences can really bring some clarity to it that they don't have when they're just in your head. So that part's certainly therapeutic. And yeah, if I have like the writing the beast was therapeutic, because I had like seen this picture in my head for so long every time I listened to the song, that getting to actually like write it down and have it have real concrete pictures behind it was very fun. And it's also just such a messed up story. And so it was kind of like getting that thought out of like, so it didn't just live in my head, but now it's on the page. But literally it's so messed up that when I submitted it to the group for critique, we had never really talked about content warning before. And I had even thought, like, I didn't quite process, like, I should put a content warning on this, but I did wonder, like, as I submitted, I was like, I feel like I should warn people.
She didn't.
About my story, and I did not. And one of the very first things people were like, we need content warnings on our books.
I was like, Katrina, that was messed up.
Yeah, it was like the very first thing Kristina said. She's like, it's great, I love it. That was messed up.
I love this question from Filmmaker Dream Studios. They asked, when you write an autobiography, do you need to ask permission from the real people to put them in the book? I would say that so writing an actual autobiography is different. And maybe you can speak to that because of your memoir story. But I think what we're talking about is more like just taking bits and pieces of your life and infusing those things into your story. And I would say that in general, I take such fragmented parts of my life that you maybe wouldn't even recognize. Like, if a person in my story is based on someone I know, it's not everything about them. It's not like a carbon copy of them. And it's different enough.
It says it on our copyright. These are works of fiction.
So any people or places that you blah, blah, blah. But I will say one time, I won't go into depth about this just because the book isn't out yet, but I do have a character that I have in one of my longer form novels that I've been working on that is going through sort of like a self-identity crisis, similar to something that a friend of mine was going through. And I did talk to that friend about whether or not they were okay with me sort of putting that into my writing and like kind of taking what I had learned from like talking with them. And that is because it was like a more sensitive issue, but in general, I try to like make it vague enough that
when you're talking more concretely about like, no, I would actually like to talk about this person and maybe even use their real name or whatever. There's sort of like two different things you have to think about. One is literally your legal obligations, which honestly have a lot to do with like how much truth you are telling and how supported that truth is. Because if you say bad things about someone publicly and those things are lies, that's defamation. So like there's that aspect of it. That's not something you necessarily have to worry about if you're just like telling your own autobiographical story and talking about how sweet your grandma always was to you. Like, that's not an issue. There's a personal kind of moral issue when you do stuff like that about how important it is for you to check with people to make sure that the way you're expressing their story in public is okay with them. It's especially important if it, like, sometimes you can just kind of change names and a few details and most people won't know who you're talking about. And that makes it a lot easier, and people and you know, your friends or family are like, won't really care. But sometimes it's not, it'd be really easy to know like who you're talking about. And in that case, it's like, doesn't really matter if you change their names or a few details. If sort of this is a big deal in your life and a lot of people know about it and it's going to be really obvious you're talking about them, then that's kind of a question for you morally of like, am I okay with that? And do I feel like I want their permission first? It's like you wouldn't necessarily legally need it, but you might for your own sense of self. But when you're just taking inspiration from people, and like one of my nano ideas that I'll probably go back to one day. It didn't work out the year that I tried to do it, which was like a magical girl novel, but it's like the magical girls are like grown up and then they get like pulled back into it. Like one of the characters is just Kristina. Like it's basically like the premise of that character is directly inspired from like conversations Kristina and I have had about our lives and like accomplishments we've had in our lives. And then also specifically like her work on YouTube and what it's like being like known and famous. And it's sort of, I took all of that and I put it into the idea of a magical girl. But the thing is that that's just where it started.
I'm completely fine with this.
Yes. Yeah. But that's just like where it started, and where it ends up is probably going to be unrecognizably like not Kristina. Like because it's like that was just the idea of a starting place. And now this character has their own given circumstances. She has her own family and her own personality. It's not actually just a carbon copy. It was just,
it should be.
Yeah.
Because I'm really cool.
Just cast her in it. She's born to play a magical girl.
Play myself in the movie version of it.
I mean, that should happen regardless.
So that's another thing. I've also done things before where I like literally wanted to use the text from like direct message conversations I've had with friends, because we basically like accidentally wrote really funny dialogue. In which case I just asked them, I was like, can I put this in my thing? I think it's very funny. And I just got their permission because really they sort of co-wrote it. So that's, hopefully that answers too many of your questions.
So we've got about 15 minutes left. I was thinking we wanted to do a book giveaway. So we should maybe have people write something in the chat if they want to be considered for the book giveaway. And then while people are doing that, then maybe we can read our second book poetry submissions.
So
Yes.
are they actually competing on skill, or is it going to be like a random draw?
I think it should be a random draw, but we still have to have them write something funny or thoughtful or creative. Oh, I love this idea. Okay. We're going to do 1-sentence stories. Is that what you were thinking?
I mean, well, I don't know. How much, is it too much pressure to ask people to write stories? What if I was just going to be like, okay, we have wolf, wizard, and 4-leaf clover. Which is the best?
Oh, I was going to have them. I think
you want to write
one sentence.
A wolf, wizard, 4-leaf clover story?
Yeah, here. I'm going to write this in here. Wolf, wizard, 4-leaf clover. Write a 1-sentence story to win a copy of What Happened to Annabelle. There we go.
If they already own What Happened to Annabelle, could they win a different book?
Yeah.
Book of your choice.
Yeah. Or they could get a copy and give it to a friend, and they can start their own book club, which we will not say is a bad idea.
Yeah, I will say
book clubs can be great ideas.
Short story collections make excellent gifts.
Yes.
Because you don't really have to know what kind of, especially ours, you don't have to know what kind of thing the person likes, because there's something in there. So, okay. While you're doing that, coming up with your stories,
Shay, you can't win.
Shay is not going to win.
Also, now we need the punchline for that joke, Shay.
Yeah. Do we want to read ours?
Yeah, we can go in order again.
I did a lot of like hemming and hawing and mostly answering questions and realized I didn't have a poem, and then I went very simple with it instead.
Yeah, I like it.
So for boys' book clubs and other bad ideas, my poem is simply her crisis, his promise, her blunder.
Love it. All right. For the mistletoe paradox, I did mine based on my story for the mistletoe paradox. So here, hold this up. Them, surprise advance, kiss attack or bite. Me, scream and search for shelter.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
It's a great one.
This is for half of my story in What Happened to Annabelle. Devil charm woman, she escaped, has lovely affair. He try murder, but suffers.
He tried murder.
But suffers. I appreciate that you pronounced it the way it appears because you have to add the S separately.
Yes,
Suffers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a whole separate thing. Right there.
Suffers.
Maybe we made the contest too hard. Maybe your way was right. Oh, here we go. The white wizard cursed the wolf into a four-leaf clover after he ate his only child.
Wow.
He deserved it.
Yep.
All right. We got a good contender.
I mean, I guess we should also point out that when we say like one sentence story, don't think like it has to be a good single sentence story. It could be like a single sentence description of what would be a great story.
Yeah.
Because I feel like what we got there is like it's almost like the thing you put in your pitch letter to your agent.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I wrote. Isn't it great?
I thought finding a four-leaf clover was supposed to be lucky, but the wizard turned me into a wolf.
Oh, I like that.
Ooh, that's good too. I love it. Well, we have until the end of the stream for people to submit their stories. Okay, don't take yours off because we have to take pictures.
Because we got to take pictures again.
Yeah. But I need better lighting, so we'll wait.
Guys can check them all out on our socials, which
Yeah.
are expertly run by the Kristina and Shay team.
It's really pretty.
It's been very fun to curate this
So-
social presence.
The wolf plucked a four-leaf clover and turned into a wizard.
Ooh.
So much for lucky four-leaf clovers, thought the wolf as the wizard cast yet another spell that turned the grass beneath them to lava.
Oh my
Nice.
God.
Writing the first draft on paper or write everything digitally from the start. I write too slow on paper for my brain.
Yeah.
And so if I try to write something on paper, I will get ahead of myself and then I will start thinking thoughts instead of writing words.
I would say, yeah, I sometimes have written on my phone if I get an idea and I don't have my computer near me. I have literally written like half of a short story just like on the notes function of my phone. But I'll do like, if I'm actually like outlining a story, I'll like start with like index cards and I'll write those. But for short stories, I usually don't do that. Usually I go straight to just like jotting down some notes and then just going for it.
I wrote my first nano entirely by hand. That was a bad move.
But you can say you've done it. Like that's a feat. I've never done that.
And to be clear, I've known some people that the reason they write by hand is because it's slower. And so they're more intentional with their words. And I think, and also like the slowness of them gives them almost time to figure out what is going to happen next. So they don't stop themselves to be like, oh, I don't know what. So it's definitely a personal thing. But for me, yeah, it's hard to write by hand.
I'm imagining a wolf who is successful in every hunt thanks to his four-leaf clover. A group of animals embark on an epic quest to defeat him, ending with a lizard eating the clover and ending the wolf's tyranny.
Nice.
I love it. Okay, so how many submissions do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Do you have a die?
A five-sided.
Well, a
five-sided
D6.
die.
I was hoping we'd get like one more.
Oh God! Actually, I wonder if I do.
You have board games.
I know, but my dice are in a separate place. I don't know where.
But any board game should have a D6 in it.
That's not true.
A lot of board games should have a D6 in it.
Come on, Maria, where's your copy of Monopoly?
But
That's true. We could just have any phone give us a random.
we could just assign one of these
more
dice
fun.
to like.
Well, but is it a different thing on every
yes.
surface? Okay.
Okay. Now we have our sixth one. I ate the wolf, became a wizard, and vomited a four-leaf clover. I love it.
I love it too.
Okay.
Did you find a die?
No.
Okay, Christina's going to assign each of you.
Okay. Filmmaker Dream Studio, you are the witch. Haley, you are the mouse. Halidora Black, you are the owl.
You better be remembering these.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is on you. Colin Barrow, you are the mermaid. Sarah Brewer, you are the knight. And Michaela, you are, I don't know, is this an explosion?
The universe creating itself.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you are the universe creating itself.
Perfect. Great. Of the three, no one would have expected the clover to be more dangerous than the wolf or the wizard. I'm not entering the contest. Just realized I misheard wizard as lizard.
I was wondering. Lizard seemed like coming out of nowhere, but I was here for it.
You're still in the running. Okay, We've got our 6 contestants.
And I hope you all remembered who you were.
Yeah. So I'm gonna roll this, and then you have to tell us who wins. Okay, ready? The witch.
The witch. I feel like that was like the first
That
person,
was the first
right?
one. So that was Filmmaker Dream Studios.
Even after we told you had to remember, we rolled the like one that we remembered.
The White Wizard cursed the wolf into a 4-leaf clover after he ate his only child. That one was really dramatic. So I feel like that was a good.
So does Filmmaker Studios need to email 84th Street?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Email us at 84thstreetpress@gmail.com to redeem your prize. Collect your prize? Yeah, good call. Type it in.
That's correct, right? Yeah. There we go.
There we
Email us there.
And congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
We got 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any like final questions or things they want to say or talk to us about while we're here? This has been super fun.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this was a game changer, the ransom notes.
Yeah.
This was very fun. I had a good time.
No, they're all over everywhere.
Yeah, but we have to leave them out because I have to take pictures.
Oh, right, because you got to take pictures still.
Yeah.
I will have a question for the three of us. I don't know what my answer is, so you guys have to go first. What in being a part of this publishing company, what's the thing that kind of surprised you the most, or that like you did not see it happening this way, or you thought it was going to be different, or you didn't even know this was going to be part of the job, or
well, I didn't anticipate doing things on my YouTube channel again. Like obviously it's been, few and far between, but it has been really nice to sort of like re-engage in that space. And I'm like thinking about looking into it a little bit more, but not like daily videos. This would all be like live or like, I don't know. I want to look into like YouTube shorts maybe. But yeah, like with a lot of like coaxing from my friends, I've been like, okay, maybe all the people who used to watch me would care about this.
Yeah. If for any of you who were here at the time of the Kickstarter and watched the video that was on Kristina's channel announcing the Kickstarter, that is just like us off camera being like, come on, do it. And they're like, fine. Like, obviously that was an exaggerated version of 100% the conversation we had just had. Like every single part of it. It's like, we were like, no, and so that'll just be the video. And so she sort of wrote it down. She's like, okay, this can be the video.
I was just worried. I just didn't want people to think I only came back to sell them something.
I had to remind her that it's like, the people who watched you wanted to read your writing this whole time. Like that's what they've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And this is now you being like, here's my writing, you guys.
We have another sentence real quick. It was only because Kristina found the 4-leaf clover in the morning, the wizard found her and saved her just before the wolf could eat her.
Oh my.
Thank goodness I found that clover. This was very fun. Lovely to see you back on YouTube. It's been a great stream. Thanks for making it and for all the books too. They've been waiting for you to put out a book. Well, now I have 3. So read them and leave us reviews because we love hearing what you guys think about the books because we worked.
Reviews, please.
We worked on these in a vacuum, and it's so nice to just know that humans are reading them.
I will also say, just like funny side story. Like a few months ago, some friends came in who used to like live next door to us when I was a teenager and moved to Alabama, and they were coming back to visit, and they knew that I always did a lot of writing. And so one of them was like, so what are you doing for writing these days? Like, how's that going? And I started talking about how like I'd written this travel memoir, and it's done, but I'm still like looking for agents or whatever. And like going through all these various things. And then my mother just like walks over and she already had these two. I just like plops them down on the table. And I'm like, oh, right. I started a publishing company and I'm in both of these books. So
Thank goodness
it's like,
mothers.
yeah, thanks, Mom, for having my back. Murray, what about you? Anything kind of that surprised you about?
Yeah, I didn't expect to be on YouTube.
I think she
Kinda weird.
still doesn't expect to be on YouTube.
Currently not expecting to be on YouTube.
Yeah, pretty much. I think the Kickstarter was amazing and surprising in a lot of ways, including how successful and also how much work it was for how long.
And I've done Kickstarters. I knew this.
Yeah,
Still surprised.
I would totally do it again though.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think, I mean, this is like hyper specific, but the thing that recently surprised me, and was really nice surprise, is so when we were putting together the book order for Annabelle, it's like the three of us are talking and we're kind of trying to think about like what stories are good openers and good closers, what should be in the middle, whatever. And it's pretty clear when you have that discussion, like everybody's got their favorites. And some people like think certain stories are like really strong in certain ways. And it's like, obviously like that one appealed to each of this individually. And what has been so delightful and surprising is how that has clearly translated to the readers, because we've gotten from the reviews we have gotten, it's like, there's no one story in Annabelle that everyone has coalesced of like, oh, this was really great. This was clearly the standout. It's like, no, like every review lists like their three favorite stories and they're completely different from the last one, and very different in like vibe too. Like it's clear that like some people were really into the more like emotional relationship based. Some people really like the sort of like out there, sci-fi fantasy things. And so it's just like any concern we had about any story being like extra strong or extra weak was clearly unfounded, because they all have their strengths, and it's become very clear now that we have other people reading them. So that's been delightful.
That's been really fun.
No, when at our book signing the other day, a guy came up to me at the end and he's like, I loved The Beast. I'm sure you're sick of people telling you that. And I'm like, no, actually I'm not. Go on. But it's just like, everyone has their, I don't know, their charms.
Yeah. I just want to address the really, really nice comment from Sarah Brewer. Thank you so much for saying that. It makes me really happy. And I don't know why I have this weird mental block with YouTube nowadays. Like, I don't know. I feel like, I sort of left the platform. And so I feel weird coming back. So it's really nice to hear you say that. And hopefully that will help me feel better about continuing to experiment with how and when and how much I want to put my life back on the channel. So thank you guys for being here today. This was super fun. Hopefully you check out our books. We'd love to hear what you think. We've got a newsletter. We've got social channels. We're trying to stay active to keep you guys up to date on what we're doing. And this has been super fun.
Anything else we gotta?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, I will say if you want to hear whether or not Kristina does more videos, the best ways to hear about what we're doing and her specifically would be to be following our socials for 84th, or to join the Discord for How to Win Nano. Because especially like during Nano time, we're in there avoiding writing.
Yeah. If you want to write with us, that's where we are. And obviously just stay subscribed to this channel, because you never know when that little notification is going to pop up and be like, Kristina's back on her bullshit.
Once every 2 years. We're just going to be like, come on, do it.
Awesome. Well, this is super fun. We're going to go, I don't know, probably eat something because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
But
Lunchtime. Pancakes for dinner.
You guys are the best.
Rhubarb cinnamon rolls.
Oh, yeah. She made rhubarb.
To eat those?
Yeah.
Yes, I've been smelling them this whole time. All right. You guys are awesome. We'll see you later. Bye.